In 750 AD, an abbey was constructed called Abbey de Obles, otherwise known as Abbey of the Forgotten, serving as a leprosarium or a leper colony, with those affected by the horrific disease being cared for by a Benedictine monastic order. A few hundred years later, between 1137 and 1220 AD, Adelaide of Maurienne, Queen of France, and the widow of the recently deceased Louis VI, began construction of a keep on the site of the abbey, which had suffered its first abandonment after the infamous leper revolt in the predescending decades. At the base of the rock outcropping that the keep sits on, a village to house the hundreds of artisans working on the project began to take shape. Most of the building materials were scavenged from the structure of the old abbey, but construction was completed in 1220, where nothing of significance really happened until almost 100 years later in the year 1314 AD, where Jacques du Molly, the last Grand Master of the Knights Templar, is burned at the stake for heresy in Paris. Surviving members of the order scrambled to hide relics gathered during the Crusades. A lone knight called Guy de Saint-Michel rode south carrying an object once owned by someone called Abdul. Guy was the leading expert of all matters occult. His prowess in the dark arts won him the name the Night Owl, and it was that reputation that made it easy to accuse the Templars of heresy. The Owl single-handedly brought an end to the Knights Templar, and while their leadership was burned at the stake, he rode south and escaped to Avalon. Once at the keep, using a ritual he learned, Guy de Saint-Michel, along with his foreign forces, now ruled the Queen's Citadel. But he would never have succeeded without the help of his bastard sons, whose war names incited fear and hatred to anyone that opposed them. The four sons would stop at nothing to win the Owl's favour. The Stag was his shock trooper, striking like lightning when least expected. One of his other illegitimate sons, the Raven, just like his father, was a creature of the shadows. Another was called the Dragon, whose scorched earth tactics betrayed his reptilian lack of mercy. And his fourth and final bastard son, the Lion, was the brightest of the four, always keen to please his master.
Sir Guy de Saint-Michel, known to most as the Owl, the man who may have single-handedly destroyed the legendary Knights Templar. Guy was the leading expert of his day in all matters occult. His prowess in the dark arts won him his knightbird sobriquet. That reputation made it easy to accuse the Templars of heresy, and while their leadership was burned at the stake, the Owl escaped to Avalon. But he would have never succeeded without his bastards. Four sons who stopped at nothing to win his favor. Their true names are lost to history, but their noms de guerre still inspire fear and hatred. The Stag was his shock trooper, striking like lightning when least expected. The Dragon's scorched earth tactics betrayed his reptilian lack of mercy. The Lion was the brightest of the four, always keen to please his master. And the Raven, like his father, was a creature of the shadows. And although they served him faithfully, the Owl would never acknowledge their birthright, much less knight them. Nor would he give them what they desired most: love, respect, recognition. They were useful as thugs, enforcers. Sadly, all relationships, even those built on love, respect, and recognition, will break in time.
Although the Owl's bastard sons served him faithfully, he would never acknowledge their birthright, nor would he give them what they desired most: love, respect, and recognition. All they were to him were useful enforcers, and because of that, over time, their relationship broke down. Being a leading expert on all matters of occult, the Owl used his prowess in the dark arts to induce the castle in magic, where he decided to create a trial to prove which one of his bastard sons was worthy of his respect. He welded up 4 elemental swords for his 4 bastard sons, each one containing its own trial. For the Dragon Knight, a fire sword called Caliburn. For the Stag Knight, a lightning sword called Durandal. For the Lion Knight, a light sword called Solace. And for the Raven Knight, a dark sword called Balmung. With all 4 of these elemental swords crafted, at the end of the trial, as a reward, the Owl placed the Obscurus Altilium, a relic that he had collected from the Crusades, capable of locating the Sentinel artifact, and in order to protect it, he created the amulet's Guardian. As the final challenge, anyone who would reach the stage would have to defeat it. In a scroll about the Guardian, the Owl wrote, "My creation, my unfinished instrument. Wonders and powers will be revealed to him who speaks incantations lie. Only speech is the key. Speech spreads in a mother tongue, formed by clay on its shore. The blood of the valley takes shape. For miles, the white water flows through the northern forests of the sea. Security, power, and eternal life come from the awakening of the word. Sleeping silently, ever on the lookout, the giant wakens to the call of the blood of the earth. and the amulet's guardian was created. However, neither one of his 4 bastard sons would be able to complete their father's trial, and sometime after, nearing their death, the owl wrote, "The day has finally come, as the stars foretold. My legacy is secure, my lineage has been sullied, but it is a small sacrifice compared to all I have had to do. Alas, I do not expect humanity to be grateful to me. I am the only person capable of understanding the importance of my actions. I was born in the age of ignorance, among flocks of sheep, raised for the slaughterhouse. No man is my equal. I am condemned to walk this earth alone, surrounded by inferior beings, isolated from the world by my superior intellect. And yet, despite everything, I resisted. I will now rise, live forever. In 1,000 years, I will be remembered." The owl, using his magic, then sealed himself behind a secret room in the castle, where he eventually died. Over 200 years later, in 1533 AD, Avalon is declared a free state by papal order, and the entire principality is granted to a powerful family known as the French Syndicate, whose leaders claim to be direct descendants of the owl. The French Syndicate would embody themselves in crime. Hundreds of years later, a wealthy and amateur demonologist by the name of Alistair Rhodes was researching and writing about a powerful object called the Sentinel Artifact. The artifact was originally created by a mysterious group known as the Nine in order to harness and protect the power of prima materia, which was the very first matter to ever exist. The Nine made it so that when the Sentinel artifact was activated, a trial would begin to test the worthiness of an individual. These trials would allow the people inside of them to experience lengthy battles of worthiness, changing the environment around them to the trial's requirements, and turning those who are not participating in the trial into zombies. However, once you activated a trial, you would then be locked in until completion or death. But once a trial was completed, the environment around you and these zombies would turn back to normal, whilst having no effect on time. Anyone who completed these trials provided by the Sentinel artifacts would be deemed worthy enough to have access to prima materia's knowledge. The Nine created many of these artifacts that became lost over time, and Alistair Rhodes became obsessed with finding them, and so hired someone by the name of Sir Archibald to recover a Sentinel artifact that he believed was located in the Principality of Avalon, paying him a large amount for the excavation to be efficient and secretive, leaving Sir Archibald to recruit workers among the local population.
I'd like to begin by expressing my gratitude for your eagerness, Sir Archibald.
Nonsense, old boy. I won't hear a word of it. I'd be a fool and a rank amateur to pass on an opportunity to collaborate. Your research is so thorough, not to mention groundbreaking.
Yes. Well, your endeavor is integral to my work, and we will both reap the benefits. Now, it's of vital importance that you don't let the reputation of the place color your senses.
Yes, I've been conducting inquiries as to the procurement of local workers, but thus far it's all been coming up a little empty. As far as I can tell, no one wants a damn thing to do with the place. If you ask me, the whole thing smacks of hysteria, which, between us, could be quite the positive. What? Makes it more likely the site's not been looted already.
Indeed. I'll shoulder the cost for you to recruit outside the area. Some sturdy ruffians is what's called for. You'll need the muscle. Given the amount I'm shelling out, I expect you to run a tight ship, Sir Archibald. This excavation is to be efficient, targeted, discreet, and do not return without the artifact in hand.
You have no fear. I wouldn't dream of it. We Fotherington Smythes are a tenacious lot once we set our minds to something.
Good man. I wish you luck on your travels. I imagine we'll be much changed the next time we see one another. Now, another spot of port.
Rather.
A few years after, in the autumn of 1913, Alistair participated in the International Exposition in Ghent, Belgium, during a reading of a handbook called The Magus by Francis Barrett, which contained information about the natural magic of herbs and stones, magneticism, talismanic magic, alchemy, numerology, and the elements. Barrett was an occultist, but whilst Alistair was reading one of his books at the exposition, he ran into an inquisitive little boy called Gabriel Kraft, who, following his reading, questioned Alistair about the cult. Kraft listened to what he had to say, and Alistair quickly became Kraft's personal hero. Kraft was inspired by what he was hearing, and from then on as a child, growing up, he would want to follow in Alistair's footsteps.
I was a young boy of no more than 10. It was fall. Ghent, a quaint city along the River Lyre in Belgium, was hosting the World's Fair. The leaves dancing their way down to the water, the smell of crustaceans filling the air. It was magical. But it wasn't only the setting that drew me in. It was a reading of Francis Barrett's De Magus that set its hook in me. The power, the mystery contained in that book, the demonstrations, the commingling of physics, psychology, the normal and paranormal. Well, I had been summoned, touched by something that I couldn't explain but felt to the core of my being. From that day in Ghent, I knew that this world was but one slice of the realities we are all part of. There is no end to what is beyond this plane of existence, no end to where we can go or what we can be. It was late when my mother found me badgering the man who performs the reading with question after question. He smiled at her and introduced himself. Alistair Rhodes. Mother thanked him and remarked how she was frightened that she may have lost me. I didn't have the heart to tell her that she actually had.
20 years later, World War II was in full action. Although Avalon stayed neutral during the course of the conflict, the Citadel itself suffered several hits by off-target bombs, inflicting major damage to many internal structures, to the point where one bomb came crashing through the dining hall ceiling, causing it to collapse, lodging itself in the ground, but luckily didn't go off. But this caused most of the Citadel's residents to abandon the place. Meanwhile, Gabriel Kraft, who became a professor of demonology at the University of Leipzig just a few years prior to the war in Germany, met SS Oberfuhrer Wolfram von List, who was leader of the Die Wehrmacht. Von List informed Kraft that he was to draft a resignation letter and prepare for an overseas trip as an advisor. Kraft initially refused, stating that he had no desire to help Reichsfuhrer Himmler to twist history to fit his narrative, and in response, von List shot Kraft's assistant, Franz, asking Kraft if he had his attention now. Kraft was then arrested and sent to an SS military prison alongside countless other archaeologists, museum curators, historians, etc., where there, they were all tasked by von List to search for various mythological objects and places to prove the existence of the fabled Aryan master race. Out of all of those von List had captured, Kraft was the only one who still refused to serve Germany's regime, declaring he would rather die. But this only amused von List, who then had Kraft's spouse, Sasha, dragged out of their home and interrogated, which gave Kraft an ultimatum: either serve Die Wehrmacht or the love of his life would be tortured to death. And so, begrudgingly, Kraft agreed to help. However, in secret, he vowed to himself that he would find whatever method he could to thwart von List. During his work with Die Wehrmacht, Kraft took part in several archaeological digging expeditions in 1944 across the globe, where he managed to uncover several mysterious runes. One of these runes was associated with the elder god Cortifex the Deathless. Another rune could be found in Egypt, a rune similar could be found in Mexico. Eventually they discovered 5 artifacts in total, each of them linked to a Dark Ether elder god. When they returned to Germany, von List, using Cortifex's artifact, symbiotically linked himself to him, where he gained his ability to raise and command an army of the dead, beginning by resurrecting the corpses of those who died during the Battle of Stalingrad. Von List intended to use his zombie army to march across Europe and ensure Axis victory. Horrified by his participation in this, Kraft, using a book called The Tome of Rituals, magically sealed himself inside of a room at Stalingrad. After sealing himself away, he lockpicked a trunk containing the other various artifacts they collected and laid his hands upon the mask of Belikar, which instantly sent him into shock, nearly killing him. After coming to, he woke to find the voice of Belikar in his head, but Kraft soon touched the mask again to return Belikar to it, as he was an unsuitable host for her. But after meeting Belikar, Kraft and the entity would devise a plan to stop von List and grant Belikar and the other elder gods suitable hosts. As you would imagine, a load of other events then happened in between, but eventually Kraft's operatives returned to Egypt and used a mirror to sever Cortifex's bond with von List, but they quickly realised that was a part of Cortifex's plan anyway, to be separated so that he could travel to the Dark Ether and summon the construct and become its Archon. Having no further use for von List, Cortifex then teleported him to Kraft's room in Stalingrad, where Kraft held von List at gunpoint, but after an exchange of words, von List convinced Kraft to stand down so that they could work together to foil Cortifex's plan. Kraft's operatives were then told to complete a series of trials in order to be able to approach the construct and challenge Cortifex, and finally, after completing these trials, Kraft then demanded von List to give up his partner Sasha's location, where he had taken him to after he was kidnapped, but to his shock, von List revealed to him that Sasha had been killed a long time ago, and the letters that Kraft was receiving from him were forged. And so, in rage, Kraft fired his gun, killing von List. for what he had done. Kraft's operatives then travelled to the Dark Ether, where they confronted Kortifex, who had now acquired the power of the Archon, but ultimately Kortifex was defeated, and his lifeless corpse fell into the endless pits of the Dark Ether, and Kraft escaped the room in Stalingrad not long after. Several months after the defeat of Kortifex on February 19th, 1945, after witnessing everything he did, Kraft decided that he was going to start a new life. He was going to move to Berlin so that maybe he and the city, after it being destroyed during the bombing, could rebuild.
Gabriel Kraft, personal log. It is the 19th of February 1945, and I feel old. If you had seen the things I have, that would not surprise you. It has been several months since the Demon Lord Kortifex was cast down by the courageous soldiers of the Allied Special Forces. Several months since, in a sealed room in Stalingrad, I took the life of Oberfuhrer Wolfram von List for his crimes against humanity, and for the murder of my sweet, innocent Sasha. I miss you so much. When it was all over, I was trapped with my enemy's corpse for 3 days. 3 infernal days. I thought I would die there. It was von List himself who finally delivered me. In his pocket was a torn page from the Tome of Rituals, the very artifact I had used to seal the room. With its power, I broached the seal. It's been several dark, depressing months, but I think I am finally ready to face the things I have seen. I was mocked for years for my belief in the supernatural. If someone had just listened, maybe this all could have been avoided. Maybe my Sasha would still be here. It doesn't matter now. The occult is real. The power of demons and runes and artifacts are as real as gravity and electromagnetism. I don't know if or when or how our world will come into contact with such forces again, but I know that if they do, I will run as fast and as far in the other direction as I can. In a few weeks I am moving to Berlin. The city is in ruins. But then, so am I. Perhaps we can rebuild together. If only I wasn't feeling so old.
A few years later, a boy called Edward Richtofen and a girl called Samantha Maxis, after entering this universe because their previous one was destroyed, now in this new universe together as best friends, but alone, not knowing anyone. In 1954, with both of them being about the age of 8 years old, they end up being taken into an orphanage. Eddie was taken into one in Berlin called the New Horizon Orphanage. His entry number was 174489. The orphanage didn't know his exact birth date because as soon as Eddie left his old universe to come to this one, his entire memory was wiped. The only thing he could remember was his name. So his biological parents or anything before that was gone. The orphanage guessed his age was about 8. He was from Germany. For his physical condition, they recorded his height was 47 inches tall. He was approximately 50 kg, had a slight build, a large head. He was very intelligent, he was curious, but didn't sleep much, and he suffered with nightmares, had a strong appetite, and would bite his nails. On the child intake form, they noted that he would talk to himself. One of the significant phrases he seemed to repeat to himself was, "safe in the house." The orphanage felt like Richtofen repeated this phrase more like a mantra than a feeling of security. Little did they know that these nightmares that Richtofen was suffering with weren't really nightmares, they were memories of his time in the old universe, lodged somewhere in the back of his mind, although he or no one else believed them to be nothing more than nightmares. A couple of years later, whilst Eddie was still in the orphanage and Kraft had spent a considerable amount of time in Berlin rebuilding his life, wanting to honour the dream that Kraft and Sasha spoke of when they were young, which was to own a cottage in the country, one that had plenty of land where they could raise a little boy the right way, he decided he was going to adopt. Kraft visited the New Horizon Orphanage, and when he went in, he saw a boy there that was sickly. He looked starved like all of the rest. This boy was Eddie, but Kraft could see something in his eyes. And the more he spoke to him, the more Eddie reminded Kraft of Sasha. He was sharp, logical, a dreamer at heart. If Sasha was still alive, they would have loved each other. Kraft noted that Eddie, being just 10 years old, didn't understand the world, but he would like to, and Kraft wanted to show him, and so he adopted him. he took him back to his home and set up a room for him in the spare bedroom.
When we were young, Sasha and I often spoke of children. It was our dream. A cottage in the country, plenty of land where we could raise our little boys the right way. But there was school, and then there was work, and then Sasha never got that little boy. So I went to an orphanage in the city today. For Sasha. There was a boy. A sickly, starved thing like all the rest, maybe 10 years old, but there was something in his eyes. I spoke to him for hours. He reminds me of Sasha. Sharp, logical, a dreamer at heart. They would have loved each other. The boy suffers from memory loss. His childhood, his parents all gone. His name, Edward, is the only thing he has left. He doesn't understand the world, but he wants to. We're alike in that way. He's asleep now in the spare bedroom. My adopted son. I don't know what comes next. But we're in this together now, my Eddie and I. For better or for worse.
Not long after adopting Eddie, Kraft realised that he suffered with constant nightmares, to the point where he was waking up in the middle of the night drenched in sweat. Kraft recalled one time Richtofen did this. He woke up in bed screaming that it's his turn. He would then go back to sleep, and in the morning he wouldn't remember anything. This particular nightmare that Eddie had was from an experience he had in his old universe, where he was playing in a house, specifically Dr. Monty's house, with Samantha. They finish playing with their toys, and Eddie says to her,
"I didn't even get my turn."
Kraft gave Eddie pills to try and counter these nightmares, but because they kept continuing, he began to wonder if he was actually taking the pills at all, or if he was just lying to him. Either way, Kraft figured that they both needed a fresh start, something to help Eddie forget the things that haunt him, and so he applied for a new job in America. Because of Kraft's background in the occult and his unique field of experience, all of the things he had gone through in the past, with court effects, and Von List made him the perfect candidate for this new CIA project that they were calling MK Ultra.
The boy is having nightmares again. The terrible things. He wakes drenched in sweat, screaming that it's his turn. He does not remember in the morning. I am beginning to wonder if he is actually taking the pills or if he is just lying to me. Either way, the boy needs a fresh start. Something to help him forget the things that haunt him. Perhaps we both do. Weeks ago, I applied to a project in America. My background in the occult and my unique field experience make me a perfect candidate. I can't say too much even here, but the work is exciting. An excursion along the frontiers of science. The CIA are calling it MK Ultra. I haven't heard back yet, but I'm keeping my hopes high. This could be exactly what Eddie and I need. Perhaps in America we can find a way to end the nightmares. For both of us.
Kraft got the job working for the CIA, and he and Eddie moved to America. When there, now that Kraft was involved in Project MK Ultra, which was a program designed to develop procedures and identify drugs that could be used during interrogations to weaken individuals and force confessions through brainwashing and psychological torture. Other methods the CIA used to interrogate people as a part of this project included electric shocks, hypnosis, sensory deprivation, isolation, abuse, and many other forms of torture. Kraft's expertise on the occult also came in handy for them. Now, from here on, a lot of events happen that we just don't know yet, that we haven't learned as a part of the storyline, but just filling in some gaps. As Richtofen was growing up in America with Kraft, he learned of Kraft's work. He had read Kraft's books, he had seen his research. Richtofen had learned himself from Kraft about the Sentinel artifact. Some of the gaps that we are missing is he eventually met a woman with whom he would begin to have a relationship with, and the two together would have a son called Samuel. Richtofen and his family would live a happy life. Until Samantha Maxis, his childhood best friend, gives Gregory Weaver some intel to go and kill Richtofen. Weaver travels to his house, attempts to assassinate Richtofen, but fails. And in order to cover his tracks, Weaver burns the house to the ground. But little did he know that Richtofen's wife and son were inside, killing them both. We aren't sure of the reasons why this happened yet, but what we do know is this was the moment Richtofen's life changed forever. The fire that took his family turned him into a monster. He was consumed by darkness. Richtofen's grief was so incomprehensibly powerful that he vowed to go to any lengths to not only get revenge, but perhaps try to find a way to bring them back, and he didn't care what it took, and whose lives he ruined or even killed in the process. Now on this new path, Richtofen joins the CIA under the Directorate of Science and Technology's Office of Extra Regular Activities, where he would become an Associate Deputy Director, creating a subgroup called the Office of Requiem. As Requiem's director, Richtofen hides his identity and hires Grigory Weaver as the group's special officer. Knowing that Weaver tried to kill him and did kill his family, this was all a part of his plan. But Richtofen needed to make sure Weaver didn't find out Richtofen's identity. Alongside him, he also approved Elizabeth Gray, Oscar Strauss and Mackenzie Carver for Requiem's senior staff. However, Eddie was also answering to a mysterious corporate board of directors, where together they came up with a project called Janus, named after the two-headed Roman god. A load of other events then took place. A zombie outbreak happened, creatures started to escape the Dark Ether, so Richtofen sent his Requiem team around the world trying to contain what was going on. Richtofen eventually came back into contact with Samantha after she infiltrated an Omega facility called Outpost 25. She was captured by Dr. Peck, and whilst in his custody, Richtofen contacted Peck and told him to throw Samantha in the Dark Ether. And then shortly after, Richtofen sent Weaver on a mission to Outpost 25 to rescue her from the Dark Ether, playing him. Once Samantha had been rescued, believing that she was responsible for the zombie outbreak there, Requiem then had her placed in quarantine, where Eddie, behind some smoked glass so she couldn't see him, began to interrogate her, where he quickly realised from her time spent within the Dark Ether, she had Dark Ether powers, and so tortured her and attempted to provoke her into harnessing them. Sometime after a new entity had come into power in the Dark Ether, called the Forsaken, he eventually tricked Omega into opening a portal, allowing him to escape, where he entered our world. Richtofen then used Samantha and tricked her, telling her to use her newfound powers to go and stop the Forsaken. It was the only way. Otherwise, he would consume the world. He freed Samantha, she travelled to confront the Forsaken, where in the end she plunged herself into him and he was drawn into a containment chamber. Meanwhile, Samantha became trapped again in the Dark Ether. With Samantha now locked in the Dark Ether again, she was no longer a problem for Project Janus. He ordered the strike team to be sent to Black Site 13 for indefinite containment before having Requiem shut down, and Weaver, Carver, Gray and Strauss, along with their helicopter pilot Raptor 1, were all arrested and imprisoned on Terminus Island. Using scans of Samantha's brain that Richtofen took back when she was in his custody, he implemented it into an AI system called the Synaptic Algorithm Module, otherwise known as SAM, whose entire programming was based off Samantha.
July 14, 1989. The time is 9:35 a.m. and I am going to attempt to synchronize the Synaptic Algorithm Module's lower and higher functions for the first time. Commencing low-level startup procedures.
Voice routines online. Memory interface online. Systems interface online. Loading memory lattice. Loading complete.
So far, so good. Let's align, synchronize, and then start her cortex simulation.
Loading cortex scans. Loading complete. Synchronizing fabric. Synchronization complete. Adding cortex daemon to process list. Rebooting.
How are you feeling, Sam?
Where am I?
Voice modulation will need to be modified. Recalibrate GPS. She shouldn't need to ask where she is. You are with friends. My name is Edward. You are my guest.
Good afternoon, Edward.
You just arrived. I'm looking forward to spending time together. Tell me, what do you remember before waking up?
I remember a knife. A promise I couldn't keep. A morning that would never come.
Do not worry. You are safe here.
Blood on my hands. But where are my hands? I don't understand.
Sam, nightmares. They are not real.
How? How do I know what's real and what isn't?
Because I will help you. Would you like that?
Yes, I would like that very much. Thank you, Eddie.
Now that Richtofen had access to an AI version of Samantha's brain, he could begin to pick it apart, to help him understand everything that Samantha knew, everything she had done, everything she had witnessed, all of her darkest secrets. He had hoped the synaptic algorithm module would tell him. Back at the Citadel in Avalon, the castle had been left pretty much abandoned ever since the end of World War II, and was now only used by the French syndicate, whose leader was called Franco. Because the Citadel was a convenient location to make inconvenient problems disappear, and enough off the beaten track to serve as a depot for their illicit smuggling and narcotics manufacturing activities, they decided to stay. Richtofen hired Franco, paying him millions to do two things for him. One, deliver refugees to his terminus island so that his lead scientist, Dr. Modi, could experiment on them. And two, he wanted them to track down his father's location. Richtofen sent Franco a dossier saying, "I've drawn a crude map of Viale Villa where our man has been sighted. He's clever. But you know that about him. He changes his routine often, but always comes back to Troy Bellis in the morning for a coffee, sips at the counter, and then leaves. He has security. Well, a large man, leather duster, vacant eyes, you know the type, whom he never engages in conversation with, but is clearly trained. Proceed with caution, he may not be the only one." Kraft also makes frequent visits to the market. He speaks with a kindly old woman with a black and white Havanese. Find her, use her to get to him. I've also attached photos of the excavation site to remind you of Kraft's importance. We do not know where Kraft lives. Find him, follow him, and locate his residence. Abducting him from his home will attract less attention than snatching him off the street. I need not remind you the importance and sensitivity of this matter. Do your job, I am paying you enough. Richtofen paid Franco millions to track down his father so that he could force him to tell him about the Sentinel artifact. We don't yet know why Richtofen wants this, but we believe it may have something to do with him bringing his family back. Because of everything that Kraft has already gone through, my suspicion is he doesn't want to tell his own son, Richtofen, how to get to the Sentinel artifact, because he's witnessed what something like this could do if it gets into the wrong hands. And because Richtofen is so enraged with emotion after the loss of his family, if Richtofen does get this, he could potentially end the world, which is why his own father won't tell him or anyone else what he knows about it. But Richtofen told Franco to kidnap him and extract the information from him.
So, you wanted to talk to me, huh?
No, Franco. You need to talk to me. Kraft, do you have his location?
He's in Avalon.
This I already know, but you are my man in Avalon. I expected more progress.
Excuse me?
Who do I need remind you of Kraft's importance with regards to the artifact? If this is a question of money.
No, not money. Logic. If this is to further the research, fine. But if this is some personal vendetta, then we may need to reassess, huh?
Get Kraft, locate the artifact. It is not complicated. Unless you lack focus.
Oh, la. Careful, Director. You are walking a thin line.
You have the information I sent on how best to ensure Kraft talks, yes?
Yes, it's very specific. You're one sick fuck, aren't you?
Perhaps. But my methods get results.
Look, I go down this road. It will get messy. You sure you want this? I mean, considering your history with Kraft.
Our history is of no concern to you. Concentrate on the task. Stick to my instructions and get it done. Understood?
Understood.
In order to kidnap Kraft, Franco hired Sergei Revanov. After 1985 with Requiem gone, he was hunted down by Omega and the KGB, and well, the Syndicate gave him a place to hide. So he started working for them as an enforcer. They found Kraft's house, kidnapped him, and brought him back to the Citadel, where every day Revanov was in charge with interrogating him, beating him to try and extract information out of him about the Sentinel artifact. But Kraft wouldn't let slip. No matter how many beatings he took, no matter how much pain he was in, he wouldn't tell the Syndicate anything.
Okay, tell me, Sergei, what have we learned today?
We have learned that 72 hours without sleep causes vivid hallucinations, violent mood swings, and dehydration.
Richtofen warned me that Kraft can be a bit stubborn. If that's what it takes.
I was referring to me.
Every How's the breaking point, huh?
Well, I have reached mine. I have been at this for 2 weeks, day in and day out.
What do you think, huh? You're punching a clock? Hourly wage for your efforts? Effort means nothing. Outcomes matter. The artifact, where is it? How do we find it?
If he knew where it was, he would have told me. If he knew anything, he would have told me. He won't talk.
You're aware of the lengths we went to get him, huh? To bring him here, huh? Find his weakness, or I'll drop you back in Grozny. Reacquaint you with your old friends. And same goes if I catch you drinking on the job again. So stay the fuck out of my wine cellar.
The Syndicate continued to beat Kraft, but still he wouldn't talk. On the 18th of February 1991, Richtofen was asleep in his bed in Liberty Falls, where he was having a dream that turned into a nightmare of him sitting in a park with his wife and son. He gets up to go and get his wife a jacket because she's cold, and when he turns back around, he sees them burning alive. He has a nightmare of them dying all over again in the fire. He then wakes up, gets out of his bed, and the PA system in the mansion starts ringing, where he is alerted by his scientists that there is something wrong with Sam and dimensional breaches are occurring across the facility. Richtofen grabs his Wonder Waffle DG2 off the table and starts making his way down. He gets attacked by the undead on the way, but he eventually makes it into the elevator, where as he's travelling down to the base level, a purple dark ether cloud starts attacking him, and he says, "I swear to you, Sam, you'll never be free."
I swear to you, Sam, you'll never be free!
Richtofen then disappears as the elevator door opens, and then Sam says back to him, "But Edward, I already am."
But Edward, I already am.
The undead then begin to take over Liberty Falls. Meanwhile, on Terminus Island, a zombie outbreak happens there at the exact same time. Dr. Peck and Maya, after spending years tracking down Weaver, Carver, Gray and Strauss's location, enter the prison and break them out. Of course, they all hate Peck for what he did to Samantha back at Outpost 25, but because they are in the middle of a zombie outbreak, they are forced to work together, where they eventually escape Terminus Island. But not before learning from the island's network, which Sam, the synaptic algorithm module, is embedded into, of Richtofen's goal and what he's planning to do next, tracking down the Sentinel artifact. And so Weaver, Carver, Gray, Strauss, Maya, Dr. Peck, and the synaptic algorithm module travel to the Citadelle in Avalon so they can get to Kraft before Richtofen does, believing that he's also on his way there because he's after the Sentinel artifact. Little do they know, Richtofen's actually missing. And so the crew from the island jump on a boat and begin travelling to Avalon in France. On the way there, Carver and Weaver talk about how the odds were stacked up against them at Terminus Island. Weaver talks about how he feels it's his fault for the situation that they are in. He let Richtofen almost get them killed, but Carver tells him there's no time to dwell on it.
You're quiet. What's going on? Just coming to grips with the fact that I let Richtofen almost get us killed. Yeah, well, try not to dwell on it. It's embarrassing for a man at your station. Well, former station. Cut the shit, Mac. Just admit the last 6 years are my fault. You should have left me to rot. Stop. We just got started on whatever this is, and your woe is me bullshit is already wearing on my last nerve. I got no patience for it, and I really don't want to do anything rash. Like shoot you. Might as well. You know what? Shut the fuck up. Look, us ending up at Terminus, it was always Richtofen's plan. Hell, our cell assignments were a strategic move. What the fuck? No. Oh yeah. He probably figured if you, me, and Raptor 1 couldn't conspire, we'd be up Shit's Creek. So he put the docks between us to block comms, thinking that'd be enough. The fact that he thought Gray was gonna fold like a wet paper bag, that he didn't realize how strong she was, just shows how arrogant he is, and that is a weakness we can exploit. Now Strauss, poor man was never going to be able to adapt, but he made it out, and that's not nothing. Okay, you got a point. I still don't. You sure you want to be contradicting a man who just threatened to shoot you? Okay, I'm not going to argue with that. But you're also right. This is Richtofen's fault. And when it comes to reasons to hate him, there's always room for one more. Yep, fuck him. No more dwelling. We ain't got the time.
About a week later, on the 25th of February, they eventually arrive at the Citadel, where Revanov is sitting in his room drinking himself away, reminiscing over a picture of him and Samantha, Franco is calling out to him over the intercom telling him that Kraft needs a beating, so come and do it, when all of a sudden an alarm starts ringing out and Weaver, Carver, Gray and Meyer enter his room. Revanov says to Weaver, "I thought you were dead." Weaver says back, "If only it were that simple." Peck then walks into the room where Revanov says, "What is this rat doing here?" And Weaver says back to him, "We're looking for a man named Kraft. He may know how to bring back Maxis." Revanov tells them Kraft is our prisoner. We were offered millions by Richtofen to find out what he knows, but he won't talk. He then notices Meyer and says, "Who are you?" She says to him, "I'm gonna kill your boss, Franco," because remember, Franco killed Meyer's brother, Nathan. Meyer and her brother were smugglers. They ended up partnering with Franco, but Franco betrayed Nathan and had him sent to Terminus Island along with a bunch of other refugees, where he ended up dying. So Meyer is here on a revenge mission to kill Franco. Anyway, a zombie outbreak then happens. A couple jump through the windows and start attacking them, but they kill them before they leave through the window, telling Revanov to stay behind with Peck because he's too drunk, whilst the rest set out to retrieve Kraft. With Strauss and Raptor 1 in the helicopter above them ready to extract, and Peck, Revanov and Sam talking to them over the intercom, Meyer, Carver, Gray and Weaver begin making their way through the Citadel. Sam tells them she doesn't know why these dimensional breaches keep happening.
Dimensional breaches have formed around the keep. I cannot tell how or why they are occurring.
Well, get with the program, you glorified abacus. We've got our hands full down here. Oh, and Ravenov, say privyet to Sam.
Good luck processing that, Ravenov. We're a few days ahead of you, and I still can't wrap my head around it.
Revanov, of course, being totally confused as to why he's hearing Samantha's voice, throws up. Peck clarifies to him it's not actually Samantha, it's an AI based off her brain. Weaver then asks Sam again what the deal is with these incursions. He thought the Dark Ether was sealed away back in 1985 with the Forsaken, but Sam speculates that it must have something to do with a failed Project Janus experiment, or maybe there is something on the other side in the Dark Ether that is broken through. Either way, she doesn't know yet.
Sam, what's the deal with these incursions? I thought the Dark Ether was sealed away.
It was, but a dimension is not easily contained. Perhaps a Project Janus experiment failed, or something on the other side could have broken through. There is insufficient data at this time.
Whether Sam is lying or not, because remember, she was created by Richtofen, Peck then asks Weaver over the intercom if he truly believes the Sentinel artifact can bring Samantha back from the Dark Ether, to which Weaver reluctantly says to him he doesn't know because she's been there that long, and we know the Dark Ether has many side effects. The longer you are there, the more likely you are to succumb to them. Some of those side effects include smaller things such as memory loss, or bigger things such as you turning into some kind of Dark Ether creature such as a mimic or even a normal zombie. So because Samantha has been trapped there for so long, if she is still alive, there's the chance she is not the same person she was the last time they saw her. But either way, they're gonna try. They use a cannon on the Citadel's walls to blast their way into the castle entrance, where they make their way down into the dungeon to a room that contains loads of valuable weaponry and even prototypes from Richtofen himself. And down there they also discover a crate with a Project Janus logo on, which upon opening, a creature called the Doppelgast comes out and attacks them. They kill it, they pick up a blood Ethereum crystal that drops from it, place it into a portal inside of that crate, and the Pack-a-Punch machine is teleported in from the Dark Ether. They then find a ominous door which they open up, and inside they discover Kraft.
You. I know who you are and why you are here. To obtain the Sentinel artifact, you will first need an amulet hidden in this castle.
That is more than I could get from him all week.
Listen closely. Abiri Oculus Tuus. I gave you the means to find the amulet. Now hurry. The Syndicate cannot be allowed to obtain the Sentinel artifact. It must never fall into his hands.
Kraft tells Weaver, Carver, Gray and Meyer that to obtain the Sentinel artifact, they first need to find an amulet called Obscurus Altilium that was hidden in the castle by the Owl, and in order to do that, they would need to go through the Owl's trial, set by him for his 4 bastard sons. Weaver, Carver, Gray and Meyer would need to complete it to retrieve the artifact. They start off by obtaining all 4 of the elemental swords for the Lion, the Dragon, the Raven and the Stag. Revanov apologises to Kraft for all of the beatings that he's given to him.
Kraft, I sorry. And does not begin to cover how bad I feel about...
Save your apologies, Ravenov. Just turn your life around. Someone very close to me lost his way, much like you. It's never too late to make things right.
Ravenov also says to him if he had the ability to use magic, why didn't he just use it to escape?
That spell you placed on my comrades. If you have such power, why did you not use it to escape?
To clarify, I am a scholar, not a magician. The incantation only works because the power resides in this citadel, not in me.
Meanwhile, Maya tracks down Franco, who has locked himself in a cellar. Over the radio, Franco calls out to Chloe and Laurent, asking if anyone's there. He doesn't want to check himself because of the zombies. Maya pretends to be Chloe, asks him to open the door, and Franco falls for it.
Chloe, hello? Is anyone there?
Oui, it is I, Chloe. Open the door, allons-y. He bought it? Idiot.
She makes her way down into the cellar, where Chloe and Laurent have turned into zombies. She kills them, keeps making her way down, where eventually she confronts Franco.
Oh fuck! Oh fuck! Oh fuck! Okay. The door should keep her out.
Why won't you just fucking die?
Wait! Killing me won't bring your brother back. You know he wouldn't want this.
This isn't for Nathan. This is for me.
With Franco dead, they continue their mission to obtain the amulet, where after completing a bunch of trials, they eventually gain access to the Owl's secret room, where upon entering, they find in front of them an ancient mystic recording.
Greetings, my bastards.
Son or not, I'm always armed.
I knew you would be the one to find me. You were always my favorite. Was your arrival here heralded by your brother's corpses? Well done. A fitting end for wretches such as they. You must pass a final test if you wish to claim the obscure Attilium. Only then will you be worthy of my respect. Will you do it? Will you best the beast for your father's honor? I knew you would accept the challenge. That is why you are my favorite. To be deemed worthy of my house, you must first defeat the amulet's guardian.
Thinking that it must have been one of his bastard sons that has completed this trial, after talking to Maya, Grey, Carver and Weaver, the Owl tells them the final thing they must do before they can obtain the amulet is defeat its guardian. They pick up the guardian's key off his table, make their way back down to the Citadel, place it on a statue, and it comes to life. With the four now battling against the guardian, it tells them, "My duty is sacred. You have trespassed and you will die. It is my job to protect the amulet." But, as you could have guessed, otherwise the story would end here, eventually they defeat the Guardian and pick up the amulet. But at this exact same time, zombies break into Kraft's prison cell and begin attacking him. They rush to him, but it's too late. With his final dying words, Weaver asks Kraft, "We need to know what to do with the amulet." He tells them to take it to the excavation site, but beware, the Sentinel artifact could consume you. And he also tells them, please, if you do find him, do not hurt Richtofen. He is my son. With that revelation, Kraft passes away. Gray makes a comment saying, I don't think Kraft knew he was raising a monster until it was too late, with Revanov mentioning that the dig site is not far. The four get up and with the amulet begin travelling there to retrieve the Sentinel artifact.